put a lot of thought into this one, but man, I wasn't really planning on a deep discussion about this, right? I'm not gonna throw a lot of I told you guys so at this one, right? I'm really not. And just full disclosure, I haven't even watched the last episode of The Boys. Just it was a time thing. Like I couldn't get it in last night, and I really wanted to dedicate some time to it. So no spoiler alerts thrown my way. Although whatever, I throw out spoiler alerts all the time. But I didn't feel like this would affect me from having this conversation about the boys, right? Like, who's the biggest threat? If we just look at them bloodline wise, what's the biggest threat to mankind, or specifically the Earth? Like, which family? The Gen V family, not the Gen V. I don't want to say that. The Compound V family, or the Grayson family, right? And just looking at the two of them, and I kind of see them as having some, like, they've got some things. Well, obviously, like, we see some similarities to them, not a lot, right? We do see like a dominant woman imprint on both of these groups here. Looking right off the bat, like, obviously we got Stormfront up in front, who is the ideologist. She's the manipulator. She's the supremacist. She builds the mythology that drives the others. Ryan's the most detached from it, but you get family dynamics in different ways, right? And obviously the other dominant woman force is Debbie Grayson, who tends to be their emotional anchor. She is, their moral compass, so to speak. Though I don't know if she really is. And I'm going to challenge some things about Debbie, because here's the thing, like, which family really, represents like the greater threat, right? Now, when you look at, the power, obviously all four of these beings are superpowered. When we look at the V family, some of them possessing immortality, right? And again, no spoiler alerts. I haven't seen episode 8 of The Boys, so I don't know how this ends. I know that Soldier Boy's frozen. I know that we believe that Stormfront's dead. I know when I last saw it, Ryan was still out there someplace. And I don't know. I don't know what's going on with any of them right now, right? So I'm sans that episode. What we do know about the Grayson family is that we've got 3 superpowered beings, and individually, each of these is probably more powerful than, like, I think obviously Omni-Man is more powerful than anyone else that the boys have. Again here's the thing, man. Team Boys, everybody has flight except for Soldier Boy, right? So I don't know, man. I don't know. Is Ryan a good matchup? Like, I don't think anyone's a good match for Omni-Man, to be really honest. But a half Viltrumite, maybe you can't deal with. Like, I love the I beams that the VLAN, the Homelander crew has, right? I love that. That's an important weapon. It's an important long range weapon, and I don't know if Mark's been uniquely tested in that regard, or Oliver, right? So is Ryan enough to handle, like, Oliver? Possibly, right? I think that obviously they're going to struggle with Omni-Man. But I think, Homelander going head up against Omni-Man, or maybe even Stormfront. I don't know. I haven't been comparing. I'm just simply saying that the Graysons definitely have a weak link physically, if these were going heads up. But I'm really looking at it in what is the scariest outcome for Earth? Who represents the scariest outcome for Earth, right? And if I go with Team V, right, obviously with Stormfront, right, Homelander, Soldier Boy, Ryan, like, they've already shown they've gotten their generations, like, they are in, they exist now. And the thing about Homelander and Ryan, which makes this, like really, really important, is that Ryan didn't get injected with Compound V, right? We have to remember, like, the legacy, if you start off as Stormfront, and you would get, Soldier Boy, and then you get from that, right, from him, you get, he did what he had to do in a cup, and that's how you get Homelander. And she saw Homelander as, this is exactly what we're waiting for. So in her eyes, Homelander was it. And I tell you one thing that was not so subtle, is that he showed that he could pass on his superpowers to his son without any Compound V, right? Like, this is a very important thing. Whereas with Omni-Man, like Mark's already half Viltrumite, right? So we don't know where he's going to be. And Oliver's got, it's not Thrax, it's a Flaxian or something like that, DNA in him. And they age differently. So we don't even know how much time Mark actually has, like just being really honest. So the key thing is like both sides have actually infiltrated, have stamped their line in the human, on Earth from a genetic standpoint. Mark already exists. Mark is the half Viltrumite that we need to get done. And in the multiverse, we saw we had a high success rate, or at least a lot that were on board with Homelander's, Omni-Man's plan. So he's in, and he's shown that he could also get an Earth woman pregnant. When he got Eve pregnant, she killed it. So obviously it wasn't a super baby because it couldn't survive, the procedure, right? It wasn't that super at that point that it didn't survive the procedure. So both sides, like, again, this is not seeing 8 yet. And I'll watch 8 this evening. I gotta watch it. I gotta watch this evening things already, right? I can really take some notes. But man, I mean, it's right there. I think as a threat level, I think the Viltrumites still represent a higher threat level because they're coming with long-term conquest, domination, things that would fundamentally change the world. Even if Homelander takes over and Stormfront takes over, it's gonna be mad racist, right? Like we know exactly what that world is gonna be like, and we kind of see a little bit of it every single day, right? So that's kind of what we get, So if I had to judge them, though, man, I'm still gonna kind of say like the Viltrumites, that represents a more significant threat to mankind overall. So if you live on Earth, this is a greater problem, as far as I'm concerned. Like again, Nazis taking over. It's bad, right? But we've seen Ryan doesn't necessarily show that capacity, right? So maybe it's not so bad. Ryan looks like he's going to date little Zoe. I don't know, it's like a good match to me. And if so, maybe they'll make another. So, now, Compound V is a part of human DNA, on a big scale. There's lots of people who got exposed to Compound V, didn't really get significant powers, didn't really show any powers. They're just like regular people, and they'll have kids with. So we have no idea what Compound V is going to do long term. So it's here. Right now with the Grayson team, we're really heavily dependent on Mark, and we'll see what Mark does. But they're definitely they have cover. They're integrated in mankind. They live among us. And I just think overall, their threat level is just a much higher threat level, right? Just an extreme threat level. So that's what I want to talk about with those, looking at those. But I wanted to get into another part, man, because I made an analogy with Mark and Peter Parker and Richard Rider, who was Nova. So a lot of you guys may not remember Nova. This is an age check right here. But I wanted to do these because, guys, I've been pretty open that I don't really like Mark. And I made some comparisons to him and Peter Parker. Why I like Peter Parker, why I didn't like Mark. And those things, kind of sparked off some conversations. One, that this guy thought it was actually laughable that I compared Peter Parker and Mark Grayson. And it's not. They are not laughable to compare these two guys. First of all, they're comic books. So anybody within comic book range, I can make a comparison about a comic book character, right? They have that in common. They're comic book guys. These guys we also know are young guys, so they're teenagers. And that's kind of the core. These 3 heroes here are all one archetype. There's 3 different heroes. Peter Parker, who's Spider-Man, Richard Rider, who is Nova, and Mark Grayson, who is Invincible. Now, curiously enough, Peter Parker and Richard Rider were 2 of my earliest intros into reading comic books, like 100%, right? This is where I started reading comic books. In fact, I think it was Nova first. I was on Nova for a minute. I really liked Nova. I was totally feeling Nova, man. I don't know why I got turned into other stuff, but because, he wasn't as big a story at that time. But early Peter Parker definitely got me in. And so both of them, are in that vein. Similar to Mark, right? Just in enough of the core stuff. These are guys who are young and overwhelmed a lot of times. They have sudden power. A lot of times they're not really prepared for it. Then all of a sudden you have this burden of responsibility that all of them share. They also have these bouts of self-doubt in crisis that all these guys share as well. And they're expected to save everyone while also having to go to school, trying to have relationships, right? Which is a big defining part of them still wanting to maintain their regular life, have a girlfriend, have buddies that you hang out with, have somewhat of a normal life, which is what, most teenagers value at this time. So each one of them has its own nuances to it, like how they're coming into it, but definitely like there's similarities on the teen hero burdened with all this adult responsibility at various levels. Now, obviously, with Peter, he's a neighborhood hero, right? He's grounded in humanity. He protects the people close to him. He balances ordinary life with this extraordinary responsibility built into him after his Uncle Ben gets killed because he chose not to be a hero, right, in that moment. So that's where he learned it from. Richard Rider, or Nova, is a cosmic protector. He was chosen to defend this entire galaxy. He's kind of similar to, like, Lanterns. I always kind of put Nova Corps and Lantern Corps kind of neck and neck. Although Nova Corps never gets that kind of run. I don't even know if they're still doing Nova Corps stories like that anymore. But he carries the weight of an interstellar war and civilization far beyond his world. So he's dealing with a lot. Like, he really ups the ante on, like, what he's kind of getting into, right? His focus is more cosmic duty and survival. Now, Mark is obviously heir to an empire. He's born into this power and this violence. These fights break the cycle of, like, he has fights to break this cycle, and he's trying to forge his own path. While he's got all these things that are definitely, like, questionable decisions by him. So they're all kind of, like, dealing with various levels, like, from street level threats to cosmic threats to, like, these, like, world-ending threats. So each one of them is dealing with this pressure. And that was a common thread. So for the guy, I'm going to post this so you see this, because, I get a little salty when you kind of laugh at what my takes are. But I'm like, this is where I'm seeing this core from. And there's other teenagers. Like, the Teen Titans is riddled with teenagers who are given this massive power, and they're trying to cope with it while still having a regular life. Every single one of the Teen Titans wants to have a regular life. Raven wants to have a regular life. Beast Boy wants to have a regular life. They all want to have regular life. So I could have picked the whole host. I could have went with Connor Kent, like, easily, right? And so it would have really been easy, because there's a lot of architect. This is, again, comic books for the most part are still targeted at youth, right? So there's a lot of youth. And you guys spend more money than anybody else. You guys spend money on comic books and movies and stuff like that. Grown people, it gets lesser and lesser, just heavy as responsibility. So stories being tied to teenage issues is very common in comic books, and to build characters off of that archetype is also very common. So just a quickie, I just want to slide in and give you guys a quickie, but I got that bad boy in, so I'm going to do some more research. I got some other stuff I want to talk about later. After I get a chance to watch The Boys, which won't be till later. But at least I want to get this into you, like, just in a heap and spoon of welcome back. We'll talk about some stuff, again later on. And these three characters, I may talk about them a little bit more individually, but this is the archetype. And like I said, there's a lot of characters I could throw in there that kind of fit that brand. So to you who said I was being satirical, I don't think this is such a satirical situation.